Welcome back. Our first guest is a farmer and community activist with a mission to grow food and feed people through body and mind. Please welcome to the show, Ms. Karen Washington.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. I know you are a very busy woman, so we'll get to it, right?
Yep.
So I was in attendance at the panel, and there were so many things that you had said that were very motivational, very uplifting. Things that I was just really, I was happy to be a part of it and experience the conversation and witness all these, thoughts and ideas. And as soon as it was over, I looked you up and I found out a little bit about you, specifically about Rise and Root Farm. Could you tell me a little bit about that?
So Rise and Root Farm, we started 4 years ago. It's 4 women. 2 of us are women of color. Some of us are LGBTQ women. And our roots come from the community gardens here in New York City. And so we had a mission that one day we would farm together. And so now we have 3 acres up in Chester, New York, which is an hour and 15 minutes away. We grow in terms of food justice, making sure that everyone has access to our food and that we continue to have a connection from upstate to downstate, which is very, very important.
And so you split your time between the Bronx and the farm?
Correct. Yes.
Is that something? Is it like a daily thing, or how does your schedule allow you to be at these places?
Half of the week I'm in the Bronx and half of the week I'm upstate. And so during my market is on Tuesday. My market is in the Bronx. So Monday I go up to the farm, come back. Tuesday I'm here in the Bronx. Wednesday I'm here in the Bronx, and then I go Wednesday night back up to the farm, and I'm there Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and I come back to the Bronx. Saturday and Sunday, but I'm only there from April to November during the farming season.
I see. So anyone can go and visit the farm, can go up there, and do you have like forums or workshops, or what exactly happens at the farm besides the most obvious thing, which is farming?
Well, I love that you mentioned that because of the fact that we have so many people, so much support from New York City, so everybody wants to come to the farm.
Right.
So we had to cool it down. So we have community days.
Okay.
So the last Saturday of the month, we have community days where we have everybody, all our family, our friends, and our followers come up to the farm and get their hands dirty. I call it Farming Olympics. So, get down and dirty and look us up and come and have fun.
I like that. That's it's after the panel, I was thinking about the fact that I don't even remember the last time I was on a farm. I just can't even have any memories of me ever being on a farm. Certainly, I don't consider, apple picking, kind of the same thing. But I realized that, there is, I think a lot of people take food not too seriously. They take it for granted. They don't really think about the history behind what's in front of them. They just they eat because they need energy. They eat because, obvious reasons, but there's no real connection to it. Why is it important for people to understand where their food comes from? What's the benefit of really understanding everything that's in your plate? We
have been brainwashed coming from our background. If you look at our history as Black and Latino people, we grew up on farms. It's part of our DNA, and so we have gone away from the farm, away from our food. And so as a result, you're seeing what's happening, diet-related diseases, you're seeing hunger and poverty. And so what I try to do, and so many of us try to do, is to try to get people to understand their history. That our grandparents and our great-grandparents, they grew up on farms. They didn't go to a grocery store. And as a result, we were able to feed our families, be able to feed our communities. And so people are now understanding their relationship to food and health. And so getting people to understand that there's a power in terms of growing food, there's a power in terms of eating food that is culturally appropriate, and getting people to understand that it's not about the materialistic things like a car or a house, but that it's food that has power. At the end of the day, what are you going to eat? You're going to eat a car? You're going to eat a house? Or you're going to eat food? And so getting people to understand that power in eating food and going back to the land and going back to farming is really, really critical.
When you say brainwashed, do you think it has everything to do with how food is marketed towards us, like on social media, commercials? It's sort of like, on the outside of it, on the cover of it, it's like, here's this food, here's that food, and there's no real, I guess, social responsibility. Do you think it's because of the way it's marketed towards us that people just don't maybe have an interest in knowing anything more than just what's in front of them?
I think definitely marketing, but I think what's happened is that we don't put a cost or value when it comes to food. As a farmer, sometimes when people come to my farmer's market and they say, why do I have to pay $2 for a bunch of carrots? I have to tell them I'm the farmer, I grew it, and that means something. So we have to get back to understanding the cost and value of food.
Right.
I think we have been, like I said, brainwashed into thinking that it's the materialistic things that has value. No, at the end of the day, it's food and water. Those are the most important thing. Because if you look at our history, and I tell people, especially from African descent, is that why were we brought here? Why were we brought here enslaved? We were brought here because of our knowledge of agriculture. The colonists would never have been able to survive. We came with seeds in our hair. So we grew the food that you see in this country now. We grew the implements that are used. We taught about crop rotation, irrigation. All that knowledge came from us. And so getting people to understand that knowledge, all of a sudden it gives them power to now grab hold onto agriculture and want to go back to the farm and want to start growing their own food and asking their questions and demanding resources and demanding land so that they can grow their own food.
I got to say, you have an incredible energy about you, and it's coming out right now, and I saw it in the panel, and one of the subjects that you sort of kept hitting on is having this, responsibility about, like you said, connecting to the fact that we were brought here to this country because of our knowledge of food, and that, of course, has a ripple effect on the way that food is seen in the United States. Why do you think there are so many neighborhoods, and I remember this growing up myself, where our only option was junk food, really, fried chicken stuff, pizza, things that I love, but the older I get, the more I'm realizing, why is it that this neighborhood had these options and other neighborhoods definitely had much better options?
Based on food apartheid, which is a term that I use, is based on race, based on demographics, and based on where you and based on economics. Let's face it, folks. We all know where the processed food, the junk food, and the fast food winds up. Usually, it's in poor, marginalized community, whereby the healthy, local, fresh food goes to predominantly white and wealthy neighborhoods. And so let's sort of break that down. We know that this is happening, but yet where are the forces behind to say, you know what, we need to stop this madness? You can't tell people in marginalized communities to eat better, to eat healthier when they're surrounded by fast food, junk food, and processed food.
Right.
And the fact is that we know this is happening. So it's not like, it's some sort of mysterious thing that's going on. We know that it's happening, and for me, it's racial. It's racial injustice. And so what we have to do is to re-educate the food system in such a way to let them know, is the food system broken? No, it's not broken. It's doing exactly what it's supposed to do. It's a caste system. And so what we're trying to do as rebels is break that caste system down and making people understand to take back their food system and start thinking about demanding fresh local produce in their communities and cut back on the fast food, the junk food, and the processed food that's killing us.
Wonderful. Alrighty. Guys, grab yourselves a snack. Foodie Down Bronx will be right back. Welcome back to Foodie Down Bronx. I'm your host, the Hungry Dominican, and I'm joined on set by Karen Washington of Rise and Root Farm. Karen, let's talk quickly about Garden of Happiness right here in the Bronx. Tell me a little bit about that.
So the Garden of Happiness was an empty lot. At one point in New York City, believe it or not, there was over 15,000 vacant lots, mostly in low-income neighborhoods and neighborhoods of color. So when I moved to the Bronx in 1985, I had the American dream of a new home, but across the street was an empty lot. And so, in some instances, people left. They call it white flight. People that had money left. But people that could not leave stayed and turned those empty lots into community gardens. It wasn't about food first. It was about taking back our hope, our resiliency, and putting in flowers to make it beautiful.
Right.
Then, all of a sudden, while we were in the garden, we started to realize the importance of growing food. And so it became more of food justice. So the Garden of Happiness is now entering its 32nd year.
Wow.
32nd year. It's really been a mainstay in the Bronx. And also, like so many community gardens, we are fighting for justice. We're fighting for food justice. And also, we're fighting for preservation of land. Even though they say that we are, saved, we're really not saved.
Right.
It continues to be an ongoing fight to maintain and preserve land here in New York City.
I want to go back to what you had previously mentioned about certain neighborhoods having certain food options, and you're saying that the food system is not broken. We know it's sort of like it's a systematic thing, right? We know these places are being put in these specific neighborhoods. Why do you think we don't cause more of an uproar because of it? Is it because for people of color like Latinos, African Americans, is it because we've been oppressed for so long, we just maybe sometimes don't feel that we have to push back on something, or we're afraid to speak up?
I tell people what really tears down a movement is silence and complacency. And we've become complacent. And so as a result, we don't understand the value of food, the cost of food. And so getting people to understand that if they eat healthy, their bodies are healthy. And getting people to understand if you grow your own food, that's powerful.
Right.
And so now, but you're now seeing that starting to change and shift, especially amongst young people. I can't say I'm 65 years of age and I was through the civil rights movement, I was a fighter. But now what you're trying to see is more young people understanding their relationship to food and health. They want healthy options. They want to be able to grow their own food. They want to be able to own their own businesses. And so this complacency and this silence is being broken because people are looking into their communities and they're seeing the food that they have, the junk food that they have, the fast food they have, and they want change. They want change. And so I have to give it up to my young people who are out there fighting the fight, making sure that they understand, first of all, the importance of getting land, holding on to land, the importance of getting land, the importance of growing their own food, making sure that it's culturally appropriate, and making sure that that food is accessible to everyone.
Right.
Everyone in the community. And that's very, very powerful. And I'm seeing that now with our young people.
So how far are we talking? Like how young are these activists that you see? That have this general or this very real interest in food and where it comes from?
Let me tell you something. 10 years ago, if someone was to tell me that a young person wanted to be a farmer, because back in the day, again, brainwashed, farming is slave work, I would have said it never happened. But I've had kids come in my community garden, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, and understanding the racial implications of food, understanding that there is a divide. They notice it.
Really? Okay.
They notice it, especially young kids of color.
Right.
They see in their neighborhood, they know what good food is and what bad food is. They see what food is sugary and what food is healthy. And so you're starting to see this impetus of so many young people from grade school to high school to college really jump on this bandwagon, saying that they deserve and they have a right to food that is healthy and local.
That's incredible. That's really incredible. Could you tell me about the Black Farmers Fund?
Yes. Okay. So we have to get away from, as Black and brown people, we have to get away from this so-called nonprofit entity. People's going to, give us something. That's like that savior mentality. And so what we're trying to do is to get people to understand the value that they have in community, the social capital that they have within their community. And for us to get ahead, we have to support one another. Right. We have to support our own businesses. We have to bring in resources of our own so that we're not beholden to outside forces. So what the Black Farmer Fund is really trying to get people to understand, to start putting money into a pot, a fund that will go for land acquisition, farmers that have more resources, infrastructure, something that we don't have. The big thing I want to say is that out of 57,000 farmers in New York State, only 164 are black.
Wow.
So I'm putting this out to the governor, sitting down with the governor, because this is unacceptable. We can't have a class of people who were brought here with the knowledge of agriculture and not getting the resources. 164 black farmers out of 57,000? Mm-hmm. No, unacceptable. And so with this Black Farmer Fund, what we're trying to do is to get money into a fund that will help black and brown farmers get land, infrastructure, resources, so that there's a level playing field, because right now it's not.
I was very interested in a lot of the topics that were broached on the panel, and it got me thinking about, how does this affect you emotionally, personally? How does it, because you're dealing with so much, and a lot of it is, politicized, I'm assuming, and a lot of it is just, you having to meet certain people that maybe give you resistance to the things that you're asking for. And you seem to be, a very strong person in the sense that you go for what you want. How does it affect you?
I'm a very spiritual person. I stand on the shoulders of ancestors that came before me, and I have to acknowledge that, my indigenous people, my ancestors, I have to acknowledge that. And so every time I wake up, first of all, I have to give God thanks and praise, and then also have to say, I can hear, the voices of ancestors, like, don't forget us, be with us, be a voice to be reckoned with. And so that gives me strength each and every day, because I know as a person of color, as a woman, as a black woman, where that strength comes from. And I have to make sure that I continue to make people feel uncomfortable to be comfortable, and to fight for justice. And if I can use my platform, if I can use my mouth, my voice in that capacity, I will continue to do that. I will continue to break down doors and barriers for the next generation to come after me. So
speaking of platforms, there is a documentary on your farm, all right, on Rise and Root. Where can people find the documentary? And also, what's in the documentary? What are we talking about exactly?
So the documentary is Rise and Root Revolution. And so what it is it talks about our journey as 4 women. Like I said, some of us women of color, some of us as LGBTQ women and white women, and taking our journey from the inner cities up to Chester, but along the way, how we fought for justice, how we continue to fight for food justice. That word food justice and food sovereignty is being thrown around. And I tell people that in order for you to be working food justice and food sovereignty, you have to be actively involved in dismantling injustice. Right. So if you don't know what social injustice is, you're not doing food justice and you're not doing food sovereignty.
Right.
And so that's what the film is about. It's about our journey. It's about our passion. It's about our voices. Because we know that there's so many young women, women farmers, we don't get that place. There's so many young women farmers, young women people that want to be, farmers. And so we want to set that example and be a positive role model.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Ms. Washington, thank you so much for being on the show. You are literally an inspiration. You're just wonderful having you. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Stay connected with Karen and all of her fellow co-founders at Farmers at Rise and Root Farm on Instagram. They're also working on a documentary, which we just talked about. Visit riseandrootfarm.com to find out more. All right, folks, grab yourselves a snack. Foodie Down Bronx. We'll be right back.